the Civil Code requires certain things be in place before you can tow a vehicle. Personally, I don't recommend ever towing a vehicle unless they're blocking an emergency access or some such thing as that, because no matter how good the tow company is, no matter how good your procedures are in place, there's always going to be a problem with towing cars. They claim damage happened, and they try to sue the association, and you mount up costs just to try and solve a problem. But you need to have a situation where you can get those parking problems resolved. You need to have a signage in place, and you need to put notice on the car for a minimum number of hours. I think it's 4 days, or is it 3 days? 96 hours. And so you've got to follow the set procedure. If you've got parking problems in the community, you ought to be talking as a board on setting a policy on how we're going to deal with this. I do know that the Civil Code requires that a board member be present at towing. Is that correct? I'm pretty sure that's right. The board member has to be present, so if you're going to start talking about towing vehicles, you better have a board member on the property. And at the same time, we have Mrs. Neighbor who says, I want that parking problem solved. And as a board, you've got to find a way to solve it. So that's a case where you come to the board and discuss it. What's our best option here? And then rely on your manager to help guide you on the process. And when it steps over the head of the manager because you're getting a little bit too technical, let's bring the attorney in to give us guidance on how to do it. But between manager and attorney, you can set a policy at your board. This is how we're going to deal with parking problems. And then once the procedure's in place, follow it as best you can. When you put that notice on the vehicle that it's going to be towed, you have to give them that 96 hours notice. It's a good idea to take a picture of the fact that it's there on the car, because the next person walking by the car might take the notice off the car and it's not real 96 notice, so there's a good point to doing that. If it becomes obvious that to a group of board members or committee members that this is a neighbor-to-neighbor dispute going on here, can the neighbor A call the tow truck against neighbor B? I don't have the answer to that in my head. Connie or Patrice? I would think as an individual, I can do what I darn well please, but I'm subject to being in trouble with that, yeah? Tom?
I suggest calling the police first.
Ah, call the police first.
Yeah. You have to, because
that's what I was going to say, because the police, not you as an individual, not me as a board member, have the authority
there we go.
To remove a vehicle that is blocking a driveway after all practical means have been taken to remove it otherwise.
His comment is that the police have an authority we don't have, and that's good. Let me get back here one real quick. Yes?
Okay. The issue here is, first of all, the tow companies won't do it. They want to make sure that they've got total legal thing. The problem gets compounded by the fact that most of our streets are considered the same as the Target parking lot. It's private property, and so the police are reluctant to do it, so it gets very complicated. And the issue with the signs, if you read these different websites, there's a couple of Madam Kessler has one, and if you want to see the thing with parking violations, there's a whole bunch of stories there about what's happened in the past, and so it's very complicated. And the police will probably, on our streets anyhow, probably will not ticket them, and tow company probably won't tow it, because the first thing they look for is the right signage and everything else.
And I hear you. I think that you're probably right. The police will question it and not, but I think if it is blocking a private person's driveway because it's a neighbor-neighbor dispute, they might step in and take some action.
The police won't touch it in Palm Springs.
So he's saying police in Palm Springs won't touch it.
No, they won't.
Wow.
And even overdue license plates, like 4 or 5 months, and people are still driving without insurance and that. As long as it's on our private property, they'll have no.
So we've got an issue with that, don't we? And maybe we need to find a solution to it. Yes?
But if you have a fire zone and you've got it marked appropriately, they will.
So if it's in a fire zone and marked appropriately, they will. I don't want to carry on too much longer. We're down to 1 minute. But the issue is complex. Good question you brought up, and I wish I hadn't brought it up because I can't solve it. But, but it does mean that, again, as a board, you work to solve that problem and come up with a policy on how you want to handle those things in your association, and then use the guidance of your attorney and your manager. Yes?